Okay, so hello, this is going to be a little tutorial video for open processing users on basically how to make circles rotate around other circles. Okay, so this is a little bit of a cool effect that I discovered in my time using open processing, and which I think a fairly new user for open processing could use. Okay, so what we're basically going to do, and also a disclaimer, it has the potential to be a two-parter, depending on how long it takes me to explain all this. I'm going to try to be as thorough as I possibly can, explain all the things I can. However, with the program that I am using to record this, I only have 15 minutes, and I am already approaching my 1 minute mark, so I got 14 minutes left. So, potential to be a two-parter, so I will let you know if that happens. So, anyway, so say you're on your main open processing screen. You are going to go and, we're just, like we normally do, create a sketch. Everything's going to be the same over here, and kind of all that stuff right here. So, basically, function setup's gonna be pretty similar here. We generally use the 800 by 600, so I'm just gonna do an 800 by 600 window. Background for right now, we're just gonna do a white background, and let's get rid of the circle mouse stuff there. We don't need any of that. Okay, so what we're going to do to start off with is we're actually going to basically create a rectangle around the entire canvas, basically. So I'm going to actually do another, inside of the draw, I'm going to do another fill white. I'm going to do a no stroke. I don't want to see the outline of this. I'm going to do a no stroke. We'll no stroke it, and then we're just going to do a rectangle. Start at 0, 0, and it's going to be 800 by 600. Now this might seem like this might seem as kind of not a necessary step, but if you're trying to get the circle around a circle effect, the true effect, you're going to want that on there. And I'm going to kind of show you why you're going to want that on there when we get to that. All right. So, but for right now, you're going to want to create that, basically the draw rectangle that fills in the entire background. What we're also going to do now is we're going to create kind of the center circle. So we're going to fill this black, and of course, if you want, you can fill this with any color. Actually, make sure I get all my stuff correct there. You can fill this with any color. Do with the ellipse. We'll center it in the middle. So basically, you just divide these by 2. You could center this anywhere you want. But you're also going to want to keep track of these first 2 numbers right here, the 400 and the 300. If they are different from what I'm doing, but I'll show you in a second. So 400, 300, and we'll just make our radius 200. Again, you can change the radius any way you want to. Okay, so if you need a pause to get where I'm at, go ahead and pause, but I'm going to kind of show you what I have right now. It should just be a black circle in the middle of the canvas, okay? A black circle in the middle of the canvas. Okay, so what we are going to do now is create the outside circle. All right, we're going to create the outside circle. So now it's not as simple as basically creating a circle on the outside and kind of having it rotate. We're going to simplify that by actually creating some variables here. So I'm going to create a variable named x. And I'm actually at the same time, this is not super good etiquette, but I'm just going to kind of at the same time create a variable y. Okay? Now, both of these variables, x and y, these are going to be the centers of the rotating circle. Okay? Now, because we want the center of that rotating circle based on the actual center circle and not just, rotate somewhere completely off the center of the circle, the first number in this variable x is going to be the x value of your center ellipse. Again, that's why I said to keep track of those 2 numbers. So variable x, the first number I'm going to write is 400, and then the first number for y, that's going to be the y value of this, which is going to be 300. Okay? So now what we're going to do now is we're going to add both of these. We're going to add something onto both of these. And for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put kind of a placeholder for this. This is going to be a number, and I'll kind of show you what this number is. But this is basically just going to be a number, and I'm just going to put a question mark as a placeholder. Don't put a question mark there. Literally, this is going to be just until I put a number in. But what we're going to do here is we're going to multiply this by cosine. And we're going to multiply this by sine. Now, generally with x's and y's, cosine goes with x, sine goes with y. All right, if anybody in here hasn't really done a lot of stuff with trigonometry, that's what we're going to do. Now, also, because I am using the cosine and the sine, if I wasn't using cosine or sine, I honestly wouldn't have to do this. And you really don't have to do this, if I'm going to be honest with you. This is just going to make it might make your numbers a little bit easier to work with. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, right up top of the setup, kind of underneath everything, I'm going to do angle, mode, and then I'm going to do degrees. All caps with the degrees. Close that, do that, okay? Now, you don't have to do this, okay? You can probably, a lot of people could maybe get away with not using this degrees and be okay. I like using it because, again, because if we're using cosine and sine, any of you that have used cosine and sine before, instead this allows us to do cosine of a certain degrees, because the default for open processing is going to be radian. So it'd be like cosine of pi over 2 or 3 pi over 5 or 3 pi over 2 or something like that. And I know a lot of us don't really want to deal with pi's. We want to deal with the degrees, so we're just going to go ahead and do that. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to fill in cosine of 50. I'm going to fill in sine of 50. All right. Now, these numbers that I'm filling in can be almost anything, but the key thing is they have to be the same number. Sine and cosine have to have the same exact numbers with it. And I'm also going to say that about these question marks eventually when we fill those in. This and this have to be the same number. All right. Literally, this right here and this right here, these two are the same numbers, these two are the same numbers. The only thing that is different is cosine and sine, okay? Now, another question some people might be asking is, well, can this be sine and this be cosine? Technically, yes, if you're trying to get the rotating effect. The bottom line is that for x and y, one of these has to be sine and one of these has to be cosine, okay? So now what we're going to do is, and again, I'm going to use the circle. I'm going to use the lime color circle because it's a nice contrast versus the black. And we're going to do the ellipse. And we're going to do it at x and y. Now, and again, that's kind of the reason why we define the variables x and y, is because instead of having to type all of that in, we just get to say ellipse x, ellipse y, and then I just did a radius of 20, okay? Now I'm going to show you, now this number right here, this is going to be kind of a adjustable number based on what you want. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start it off at 50, okay? And what this should do is put a green circle kind of right here, okay? Now, I know some people, if you want the circle rotating inside the circle, great, you can leave it right there. If you want it outside the circle, let's make these a little bit bigger. Let's go 150, all right? And I'm going to do both of these numbers to be the exact same thing, okay? So we have something outside of the circle. Okay, great. So we have the green circle made, and we have it positioned on the outside of the circle. All right, now we need to basically make it move, okay? So the best way I know how to do that is using this command called millis. So it's going to be, actually, I believe it's going to be millis this. Yep, that's what it is, all right, with M-I-L-I-S. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do another variable. I think I might do let. Or I think variable might work here. I think I'll start with variable. Okay, so I'm going to let variable t equal millis times, and I'm going to do 0.01. I'm going to close that off. Now, what that is what millis is, I'm going to put it up here. Millis equals milliseconds. I might miss milliseconds. This might be mispronounced or misspelled, but I'm not really too terribly worried about that. Milliseconds since drawing started. Okay, so basically, once I hit the play button here, this is gonna count the number of milliseconds that basically has elapsed. Now the thing is milliseconds are very fast. All right, so in order to actually make that into a time that we can count, we're gonna multiply this by a decimal. In fact, I'm actually gonna add a 0 onto that decimal to make it even slower. Okay. Now, what we can now do is we can actually take this t and multiply it inside of this cosine right here, because basically what this is the position on the circle. All right, so I mean, actually, I'm going to comment this. So I went ahead and commented the variable t out, and let's just take a look at where it's at right now. So the 50/50s put it here. Let's say I move this to, I'm going to do 200 and make it 200. I just want to see what happens, if anything happens. See, now I moved it over here. Okay, so basically changing this number inside here causes this ball to go from basically it started here, and then changing it to 200 caused it to go here. Okay, so what, and again, we're trying to get to that. So now, what this t allows me to do is it basically causes this number inside to constantly change. All right, because again, this milliseconds starts counting, and basically this t is then a number that just keeps counting larger and larger and larger and larger and larger. All right, because basically this is going to start at 1 and just keep counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's just, and because of that, if we then take that t and we multiply it inside of the cosine, so I'd literally take 200, so inside of the parentheses of cosine, I take 200, multiply t, and I take sine and I multiply t. What I should get is, there should be rotation. Hold up. Oh, I need 2 L's for the milliseconds. Hang on, give me 1 second. Should be 2 L's for milliseconds, so millis, my bad for that. And what I should get is rotation. Okay? And again, the reason why it is rotating is this t number is constantly changing, and that's what I want inside of the cosine and the sine. I want a number that is constantly changing. That is not the exact same number, all right? If I made this the exact same number, if I just kept it as one single number, like the 200 for instance, it would just stay put and wouldn't rotate at all. But because the t is always changing, that is why we have that rotation. Okay? So I am going to go ahead and pause this video. I'm going to make a second video that kind of goes over maybe some questions that people might have or might not have over this, but just things that I've always noticed about this. So that right there is basically the rotation. And again, the main thing that causes the rotation is this milliseconds right here, and basically making t into a milliseconds and then multiplying that inside of here. Okay? And again, we'll go over that. We'll go over some more of this stuff in the next video. I'm kind of running out of time here, so be on the lookout for that second video. And that should, I'll probably have a link to posted to that second video in the comments of this video. Thank you for watching, and be on the lookout for the next video. All right.